Hello and welcome to the latest video on social work theories and models. In this particular video I'm going to be focusing on person-centered theory, but I'm going to do so from quite an unusual perspective. So I'm going to start by looking at an issue from outside of social work, and then I'm going to apply what we can learn from looking at that situation outside of social work to how person-centered theory is applicable and useful for social work. As people who know me well will know, I have quite a strong dislike of all forms of authoritarianism and of fascism in particular. So I'm actually quite happy to describe myself as an anti-fascist. And I believe that fascism poses real dangers and therefore needs to be resisted through a wide variety of different means. Now, within the anti-fascist movement more broadly, there is a tendency for this approach to take on the view expressed in phrases like bash the fash or punch a Nazi, and this idea that people are fascists or people are Nazis. And this is something that, because I am quite deeply embedded within a person-centered view, I have a bit of a problem with that, in that I believe that we are dealing with people, human beings, who hold fascist views or who hold authoritarian views or who have fascistic or authoritarian belief systems that need to be challenged. Now, does this mean that I espouse a completely pacifist, non-violent approach to fascism? Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, you've only got to look at the Second World War to realise that there are times when fascist regimes pose such a threat to the safety and well-being of substantial groups in the world, in a society, that they have to be resisted by physical means. So if you like, I don't have a problem with the use of violence as an approach to dealing with fascism, but I do have a problem if that is then phrased as fascists are evil people or are bad human beings and therefore they deserve to be punished because they have got those views. So actually it's not about dealing with the fascism, it's about punishing the fascist. Now for me, I don't buy into that at all. I believe that actually we need to focus on authoritarian and fascist behaviours. So when people say things that deny the humanity or pose a real physical risk to a particular group, in the way that, say, racist fascists can hold quite genocidal views towards people of colour, towards sexual minorities, towards lesbians, bisexuals, gay men, and that behaviour needs challenging. But it can be challenged without undermining or attacking the fundamental humanity of the person engaging in that behaviour. So again, if we take the example of the First World War, if someone is trying to commit an act of genocide and the only way you can stop them from carrying out that act of genocide is to shoot them, then we can see that we have armies, we have armed forces. There were resistance movements during the Second World War that carried through that logic of when you're in that situation. But you can also see there is a space for educational approaches, for people to come alongside people who hold fascist views, to talk to them and to help them understand the danger and the damage done by those views. And in this way, we can win people over, and people have converted from fascist views to anti-fascist views through the process of conversation, dialogue. So what I'm saying here is it's wrong to define people by their behaviour, but it is acceptable to challenge behaviours which are harmful to vulnerable people. So now let's think about this in terms of social work practice. And I'm going to touch on a very touchy issue here, which is the idea of political correctness. Now, what I'm talking about can easily be dressed up as political correctness. So I'm not saying you can't call someone a fascist because you might upset them. I'm not arguing to be politically correct, but I am saying that you need to think about the way that your language is going to affect the way that you interact with people. Why am I saying that? As a social worker, you may well work with people who have sexually abused a child. You may well work with people who have taken a sharp blade and cut their arms. You may well work with someone who has physically assaulted their partner. Now, if you call those people a child abuser or a self-harmer stroke cutter or a wife beater, what you have done is you have taken their behaviour and you have applied it to their total humanity. Now, let's be clear about this. I am not saying that abusing children and dangerous self-harm and abuse of women is acceptable. You will need to challenge those things because they can be harmful, and that can be labelled as political correctness, but it's not. It's about seeing that behind that person, behind that behaviour is a person. So what I'm saying here is, as a person-centred practitioner, you never see the behaviour as defining that person, but both as a social worker and as a concerned member of society, you have a right to step in and intervene when those behaviours reach a threshold of being sufficiently harmful. So with the child abuse, that's quite easy. That's quite easy to think about. Yes, you've got to stop it to protect the child. Self-harm, more complex, because do people have the right to self-harm if they wish to? Could argue either way. And again, with the example of someone who's assaulting their partner, you need to think about the partner here, who's a vulnerable person. What are you going to do to protect them? So can you see what I'm saying? Hopefully you can see what I'm saying here, in that, as a person-centred practitioner, you make a clear difference between what the person has done, their behaviour, and the person as a person. You accept the person as a person, but you still accept that the behaviour is or may be unacceptable. So this is when we talk about being, so often talk about being non-judgmental. Actually, social workers are called to make judgments all the time, but those judgments should be based on the facts of the behaviour and not the view you hold of the person. The view you hold of the person should still be, here is a unique individual with the capacity to grow and to become a loving, fully engaged, fully evolved and involved human being in their own right. And if you hold to that, you'll find it much easier to engage with service users, even in situations where their behaviour is very challenging. So I hope that's been interesting. I hope that's been useful. Any questions, let me know. Either email me or drop them in the comments below the video. And I look forward to hearing what you think about this idea of separating people's value from their behaviour. Thank you very much.